Now I know what some of you are probably thinking, is this really an Xbox Switch? I mean, yeah, you're using it in handheld, and that's still cool, but the whole point of a Switch is that you can use it between both TV and handheld. It's not really the same if I have to use a different system. And the answer is, well, actually, yes, this can. This is the Razer Jungle Cat, a new controller from Razer that's designed to be used with your phone in order to turn it into basically a gaming handheld. And what's most interesting about it by far is that, well, it pretty clearly has a certain heavy inspiration in the form of Joy-Cons. Now, on its own, this is a really neat idea. It makes your phone into something that's a little more familiar, like an old school handheld. You can play different games and have that kind of actual, traditional controller feel. But where it gets really interesting is that right now we're experiencing a time where cloud streaming is becoming a thing for gaming. And so when you combine it with something like xCloud, you go from having a cool way to control mobile games to what is effectively an Xbox Switch. The way this works is actually really simple. When you get the Jungle Cat, it comes with a couple cases designed to fit a few specific Android phones. The Samsung Galaxy S10, the Note 9, and of course, Razer's own Razer Phone 2, which is what we're using right here. The case just goes around the phone, and all it's really doing is acting as a way to connect the controllers directly to it. There's not any kind of hardware or anything involved. It's just a way to add slide rails. So the controllers communicate with each other using a 2.4 gigahertz signal, while they connect to the phone just using Bluetooth. So all you have to do is turn them both on, they'll connect to each other automatically, and then in your phone settings, you just connect to Bluetooth, which I've already done, so they've immediately synced to the phone. And as you can see, I'm already controlling the menus on xCloud. So the cool thing about this is that just like with Joy-Cons, it is a wireless connection. You can use them wirelessly if you like, but with this little case setup, you can connect them directly on the sides of the phone and create this nifty little handheld. So since the last time we did an xCloud video, they've added quite a few games. It was only 4 back when I did the last one, and they're at, I think, about 50 now. So we got a few more choices. Let's start off with Devil May Cry 5. I hit the wrong button and exited the screen. All right, so here we go. I've started up a new game, which looks awesome, actually. The stream is going down really smoothly down here right now. So we've got a good frame rate, image looks good. Now, the thing about the Jungle Cat compared to using, say, like the Switch, which is something it's very similar to, it's definitely a bit smaller, and where I notice it the most is if I'm using the ABXY buttons. If you're doing something that uses both sticks, the grip is actually pretty comfortable on it, but having to rely on the ABXY just causes you to crunch your thumb up a little more, which it's not awful, but it's just not quite as comfortable as it could be. But this is also, again, a problem that happens with, say, the Switch Lite. Just the smaller controls cramp you up a little bit. Now, just to kind of reiterate, because we are playing on xCloud, a large amount of how well everything runs is based on the internet connection you have, which thankfully the one we have here at the office is pretty good, especially in this room. So right now we're getting really good visuals and a really smooth looking 60 frames, which is awesome. Something I find really funny about this, by the way, is that, like, I know we're doing all the comparisons with, like, oh, it's kind of like a Switch because they're kind of like Joy-Cons, they have the shape. One thing that is honestly, I think identical is the stick heads. The height of the stick itself and the shape of the stick head, I mean, that is just straight up the same as the Switch, which I'm fine with. I actually like the way the Switch heads feel, so it's a good fit. Something else that's really interesting about this design and just screams Razer is the fact that a lot of these buttons are actually making use of their mechano-tactile. So everything has this kind of really noticeable click to it. It's not a very heavy press that's required, but you definitely get that kind of registered click, whether it's on the ABXYs, on the up, down, left, right for the D-pad, and even the shoulders. You've probably been hearing those clicks this whole time, if we don't edit the sound out. Yeah, in the time that I've been messing around with xCloud since the last demo, the experiences do vary game by game. Part of the reason I picked Devil May Cry 5 is because it's one that I think both is just a good looking game and I really enjoy, but it is one of the games that I've also noticed has a really good experience on xCloud right now. I mean, I'm not getting any kind of majorly noticeable input delay. There is a tiny bit compared to like actually playing on a TV, but considering that this is cloud streaming, it's awesome. Getting this all hooked up to a TV is actually really easy to do. All you need is to be using an Android phone that supports USB-C out to HDMI, which our Razer Phone 2 does. So we just plugged it in this TV and here we go. Basically a docked Xbox Switch setup. Now, to be fair, this is definitely not as efficient as just straight up using an Xbox, but I think something that this really demonstrates is an interesting versatility in that you have this phone with a little portable controller, and with that, you can just set up an Xbox wherever you want as long as the internet connection is strong enough. Now, because this is just mirroring the image that's on the phone, the blown up image we're getting on the TV definitely isn't as crisp as it would be if we were just using a straight up Xbox, But all things considered, even with input latency and everything, this is actually a pretty usable setup right now. And I think it's something that's only going to get better as xCloud gets worked on more and more. One thing that's a little annoying about this though is that if you want to change games or anything, you have to do that on the phone itself. So I'll be right back. And I'm back. So we're gonna switch over to just trying out Ori a little bit. Something I want to test out too is actually using the Jungle Cats on their own individually, like a pair of Joy-Cons. Something I do notice right away though is that these are noticeably smaller than regular Joy-Cons, so the way it kind of sits in your hand is just a little more awkwardly tight, but still feels usable. Now, truth be told, in a setup like this, you could also just use an Xbox One controller, which would probably be the better way to go. But I think there is something cool to demonstrate here about how you have these very portable controllers with a phone that's just a very easy setup to carry around, because whenever you'd want to, you could just hook this up to a TV that has a good Wi-Fi connection and you're good to go, instead of having to lug around an entire Xbox One, the controllers, all the cables. This is definitely a much lighter setup in total. I just died because I was talking and playing at the same time. Now, to be honest, the tech isn't quite where I'd like it to be just yet. It's not quite as seamless as I would like. It's very close. Part of this is the fact that I think there's a little extra input latency from having wireless controllers to the phone, which is already controlling a cloud streaming service. We're going to get a little bit of input latency, so it's not entirely seamless, but it is really, really close. And I think this sets a strong example of what exactly xCloud is capable of. Because again, this is the preview. It's not technically fully released yet, and that means they're still planning on improving the service as time goes by, and that's the whole point of the preview, is people playing stuff and testing it and giving feedback. And if as time goes on, they're able to really solidify the service and release... And as long as this service continues to improve, I mean, this gives you a fully portable Xbox setup that is an amazing idea that didn't require you buying a whole nother system to do. Unless you don't have an Android phone yet, then I guess you'd have to go buy one of those. iPhone support someday. They said it, we just don't know when. Now, something about this that is really interesting to me too, though, is the idea of comparing what is possible using xCloud compared to a traditional gaming handheld. For instance, let's go ahead and exit Devil May Cry. So one game I actually really want to try out here and show is Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. And the reason why I want to do that one is, if you're not familiar with it, it's this successfully kickstarted game that's basically a new Castlevania, but not called Castlevania. And the reason why I want to show it is because it's a multi-platform release, but the Switch version in particular, which is the only handheld system it's available on, by the way, didn't run great. They have been patching and fixing a lot of things, but it had a lot of problems and noticeably takes a hit in a few different graphical areas for that version specifically, when compared to the Xbox One, PS4, and PC versions, which look great. So because of that, making use of xCloud on this phone with the Jungle Cat gives us a handheld gaming experience that looks better than the Switch version. Now, part of that is because it's not actually running on this phone, it's just being played over on Microsoft servers, but still, we're getting a handheld gaming experience that is honestly better than the Switch. The Jungle Cat controller does give you all the controls you need to play games. It has everything that you'd see on an Xbox One controller for the most part. It's got both triggers, 2 sticks, ABXYs, directionals, start and select. The only thing missing is the Xbox button, but xCloud already kind of assumes most controllers might be missing that, so that's handled by just tapping the screen, and then a little Xbox symbol shows up. So you have everything you need to control and keep a fluid feeling handheld experience. A question I've been asked time and time again is, do you think Xbox will ever work on their own handheld? Because, I mean, obviously Nintendo has their long history of their handheld systems. They have the DS, and now they have the Switch, which kind of does both. And then Sony had their attempts with the PSP and the PS Vita, while Xbox has never actually released a dedicated gaming handheld. And my answer to this has always been, well, they're not really interested in doing something like that. I don't think Microsoft's ever been interested in making a separate device, but instead has looked towards the future into this idea of bringing the Xbox experience to an on-the-go handheld portable, which is exactly what xCloud has turned into. And the Jungle Cat is a really good look into how this idea is starting to form, because what's really interesting is that this isn't really branded specifically for being used with xCloud. It's a great way to use it, but in fact, Microsoft has already been working on deals with a lot of different partners to start bringing out products that are branded as xCloud-specific accessories, so that it's more than just simply playing an Xbox game on your phone, but instead, you're helping transform your phone into a more gaming-dedicated device. Now, I would love to show you guys this thing in action, because I did get one for about 4 hours, because I got it at XO19, and it was awesome, And then I might have left it at one of the demo kiosks when I realized I was running late for the bus back to the hotel. So I should probably go get a new one. The point is that that phone clip, along with the Jungle Cat controllers, are a great example of the kind of accessories that I think Microsoft is very interested in introducing into the phone market to make them a lot more like popular gaming handheld devices. And there's a lot more accessories on the way. They've already announced that they're in talks with a lot of other companies to make more things, like more stuff from Razer, Hori, 8-Bit Do, PowerA, and I think what's probably the funniest to me is Game Vice, because that just whole kind of history with Nintendo and Joy-Cons and... Yeah, anyways, xCloud on its own is a really cool service. I mean, the fact that it's in preview but already has about 50 games to choose from, and a lot of which work a lot better than I honestly would have expected, is awesome. But I think what really elevates it into the next level is the idea of accessories like these that can turn something like a phone into a true handheld gaming system. And that's what's really interesting about this whole thing to me, because there's been this kind of long-held argument and belief that mobile phone gaming was going to end up completely replacing traditional handheld gaming. And it looked like that was going to be the case for a while until the Switch happened, which reinvigorated a lot of audiences back into handheld gaming. And I think a large reason for that is just that perfect balance of having popular IPs, but a more traditional controller interface. Because no matter how hard companies try to make games specifically for phones, touch controls just aren't always the best. So having this ability to combine traditional controls with the mobility of a phone, but also the quality of console graphics, just creates this perfect balance, I think, between all these different ideas, and honestly, I think it's the future of handhelds.